in this article, you and I are together going to learn how to check the validity of a given statement. Now, please understand, valid is just another word for true and invalid is just another word for false. So, when a statement comes out to be true, we declare it to be valid. And when a statement comes out to be untrue or false, we declare it to be invalid. Hence, checking the validity of a statement is equivalent to checking whether the given statement is true or false. Alright. Now, the behavior of validity of a statement is largely dependent upon the add-ons which are used in that statement. Number one, which of these two special words are occurring in the statement? Number two, whether there is the if-then implication or the if and only if implication which is appearing in the statement. And number three, which of these two quantifiers out of there exist and for all are used in the statement. These add-ons hugely impact the validity of a given statement. How? Let's understand. Firstly, let's begin with conjunction statements, which are statements involving the and connective. Conjunction statement is true only when each of its component statements is true. Right? That is why, in order to conclude that a conjunction statement is valid, you will have to prove that each of its component statements is individually valid or true. Got it? Next, let's talk about the disjunction statements, which are the statements involving the or connective. The disjunction statement is true only when at least one of its component statements is true. If each of the component statements stands to be false, then the disjunction statement stands to be false. Yes, that is why, in order to conclude that a disjunction statement is valid, you will have to prove that out of each of its component statements, at least one of them is valid, that is, at least one of them is true. These are the techniques, these are the rules that you use in order to check the validity of a statement involving either the and connective or the or connective. Understood? Let's check out this example. It says check the validity of the statement 100 is a multiple of 4 and 5. I can clearly make out one thing, that this is a compound statement which is formed with the help of the and connective. Let me call this R. Okay, so the statement I'm denoting by the letter R. Then R is nothing but a conjunction statement whose two substatements or component statements are P and Q, which are 100 is a multiple of 4, that is P, and 100 is a multiple of 5, that is Q. So R is nothing but P conjunction Q. In order to conclude that R is valid, it is equivalent to saying that I want to conclude that P conjunction Q is valid. And for that, I should first of all prove that both of its component statements P and Q are individually valid statements or true statements. And that is very obvious, guys, over here. We know 4 into 25 is 100. That means 100 is, yes, a multiple of 4. So P is certainly true. Also, 5 into 20 gives me 100. That means 100 is definitely a multiple of 5. So the truth value of Q is also true. Thus, because each of the component statements are having their truth values as true, that is why the conjunction statement will also be declared to be true, that is valid. So in here, 100 is a multiple of 4 and 5 is definitely a valid statement. Got it? Next, let's move on to conditional statements, which are the statements involving the if-then phrase. You call them the if-then implications, and they look like P implies Q, wherein P is the antecedent and Q is the consequent. The interpretation of this statement is if P, then Q, which simply means that if the condition P will prevail, then the outcome Q will be obtained. Right? So, if I assume that condition P is holding true, and under this assumption I somehow prove that the resultant or the outcome Q will also hold true, then I have proved that this statement is valid. Isn't it? This is called the direct method to prove that a conditional statement is valid. In here, what do? You assume that the antecedent is holding true, and under this assumption, you prove that the consequent will hold true. When this happens, you conclude that the claim which is being made by P implies Q is a valid claim, and hence it comes out to be a valid statement. We also know that P implies Q is logically equivalent to its contrapositive statement, which is negation Q implies negation P. If both these statements are equivalent, that means proving the first statement to be valid is equivalent to proving the second statement to be valid. In the second statement, negation Q is my antecedent and negation P is my consequent. Okay, so the contrapositive method to prove that a given conditional statement is valid is to prove that its contrapositive is valid. For that, again, what do? You assume that the antecedent is holding true. That means you assume that negation Q is holding true, and under this assumption, you somehow prove that the consequent will hold true, that is, negation P will hold true. If you're able to do this much, in the next step, you can definitely conclude that negation Q implies negation P is a valid statement, but this is equivalent to P implies Q, and hence P implies Q is valid. So either you can use the direct method or the contrapositive method to prove that a given conditional statement, which is your if-then implication, is a valid statement. Apart from these two, we also have a very interesting third method to check the validity of a conditional statement. It is called the contradiction method. What does it say? Please understand very carefully. See, when you have P implies Q, it is saying if P, then Q. What is it saying? If antecedent P will hold true, then the consequent Q will hold true. So in the contradiction method, what do you assume? You assume the contradiction of this claim. You assume that, okay, P is holding true, but consequently, Q is not holding true. What do you assume? You assume that antecedent is holding true, but consequently, the consequent or the resultant or the outcome is not holding true, or it is false. With this assumption, you reach to some situation which is completely invalid, non-existent. Right? And that makes you conclude in the next step that your assumption was wrong. If P is true, Q cannot be false. If P is true, Q has to be true, and hence P implies Q will be true. Understood? So bingo, you have 1, 2, 3. 3 distinct beautiful methods to prove the validity of a P implies Q, that is a conditional statement. Got it? Next up, we have the biconditional statements, which are statements involving the if and only if phrase. They are called your if and only if implications, which look like P double implication Q. We know that this is same as P implies Q and Q implies P, isn't it? Because both these statements are logically equivalent, that is why proving that this biconditional statement is valid is equivalent to proving that this conjunction statement is valid. Alright, so in order to show that P if and only if Q is valid, we alternatively prove that the conjunction of P implies Q and Q implies P is valid. And conjunction of two statements is valid if and only if both those statements are individually true. So in here we show that P implies Q is true and also Q implies P is true. We know how to prove a conditional statement is true, right? So using that methodology, we prove P implies Q is true in the first step, and in the second step we prove Q implies P is true. Once both the steps have been accomplished, the next step says that P implies Q conjunction Q implies P is true, which is equivalent to saying that P if and only if Q is true and hence valid. Alright, so this is the technique which you use to show that any biconditional statement is valid. Fine, now we've talked a lot about checking the validity of a statement, isn't it? I've shared with you tons of techniques, rules and criterias which are used to conclude, to prove, to check the validity of a given statement. But what if I have a statement which I want to show invalid? What do you do then? See, in that case, we use a very famous counter-example approach. Understand, okay, I have a statement which is making a certain claim. I want to show that the statement given over here is invalid. That means I want to falsify the claim made by the statement. So what I'm going to do is I am going to search for an example. At least one example I want to search for which is going to falsify, which is going to deny, which is going to defy the claim which is made by the statement. And that's it, I will be done. In the next step, I will be in a position to say that the claim doesn't always hold true and hence the statement is invalid. Okay, as the name suggests, counter-example approach means an example which counters or which opposes the statement. That is what we aim to find. So for example, consider the statement, if n is odd, then n is prime. This is an if-then implication. I know already how to check the validity of this statement, but I want to check the invalidity of this statement right now. I want to show this is invalid. So first of all, understand the claim that this statement is presenting to me. It is saying whenever your natural number n is odd, then it will be prime. I want to search for some natural number, at least one natural number, which falsifies this claim, which counters this claim, which opposes this claim. 9. Let me take 9. I know 9 is odd, but 9 is not prime. So 9 is acting as that counter example, which is actually countering the claim made by the statement. So statement said whenever n is odd, then n is prime. But I have a natural number 9, which is yes odd, but it is not prime. That means the given statement is not true. It is invalid. It is false. We don't have just 9, we have 25, 27 and tons of odd natural numbers which are not prime. But counter-example approach says that if you are able to find at least one such example which opposes the statement, that is enough, that is sufficient for you to conclude that the given statement is invalid or it is false. Understood? Moving ahead, the next concept for discussion is tautology and fallacy. I do agree that both these are pretty fancy words, but let us dive into the understanding of these two terminologies very nicely. You already know that the truth value of a compound statement is completely dependent upon the truth values of its component statements, right? If a compound statement is always true, irrespective of the truth and falsity of its component statements, we say that that compound statement is a tautology. So when do you say that a statement is a tautology? When this statement is always true under all circumstances, under all situations. Okay, similarly, if a compound statement is always false, irrespective of the truth and falsity of its component statements, we call that compound statement to be a fallacy. Okay, so a statement is said to be a fallacy if it is always false, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the situations are. Fine, let's say P is a tautology. That means in the truth table for P, especially in the column of P, what you are going to have as its truth values will be T, 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 T. Yes? Right? So if I talk about the column for negation P, it will be what? F, 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 F. Isn't it? If the truth value of P is throughout T, that is true, then the truth values of negation P throughout will be false. So if P is a tautology, negation P will be a fallacy. Right? Similarly, if P would have been a fallacy, then throughout the truth table, its truth values would have been false, 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 right? So negation P would have been true, 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 and so on. So if P is a fallacy, that means throughout it is false. Negation P throughout will be true. So negation P will be a tautology. So keep in mind, whenever a statement is a tautology, its negation is a fallacy. And whenever a statement is a fallacy, its negation will be a tautology. Right?